communicate, there are essentially three components that you have to keep in mind. There are three aspects to communicating. The first of them is the speaker himself. You know, when I'm talking to you, there's already, before I even open my mouth, because of my appearance, my gender, my age, all of that what you see with your eyes, you haven't even heard me speak yet, but you've already passed some judgment. You've already passed some sort of predisposed conclusions about how I'm going to speak or what I'm going to talk about. The one who speaks certainly affects how we understand what they're saying. This is a human flaw, but nonetheless it's there. It's there. Now, I want to share with you something on this, about the who speaks component of communication, briefly. You know, in the Quran, Allah says, ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا. Allah struck an example. Now, just to see if you're paying attention, who struck the example? Allah. Allah. So who's the speaker, therefore? Allah is. Clear. Allah strikes the example, and of course, when you're a believer, I say to you, I give you an example. You say, okay, yeah, nice example. But if I say Allah gives an example, Allah strikes an example, don't you pay more attention? You do, because what did we take into consideration? The speaker, Allah. But the disbeliever on the other side of the spectrum, who the messenger is communicating the same Quran to, if he hears Allah struck an example, he already tunes his ears out. He says, I don't want to hear this, what Allah has to say. I've heard enough already. You've been telling me for a decade now. I don't want to hear it anymore. You understand? The only reason he's refusing to listen to the example is what? The speaker. The same reason for which the believer will pay extra attention is the same reason for which the disbeliever will be extra deterred. You follow? In Surah Al-Hajj, now Madani Quran, Surah Al-Tahrim, Allah strikes an example. Madani Quran, Baqarah, Allah struck an example. ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا. But then when you come to Surah Al-Hajj, it's a Makki surah. The majority of communication is taking place between the messenger and the vast majority of people that don't believe in what he has to say yet. Allah says to them, Ya ayyuhan nas, people, listen up. ضُرِبَ مَثَلٌ. Now listen to the English, rough English translation carefully. Allah says, people, an example has been struck. He says, an example has been struck. Who has been omitted from this discussion? The speaker. He didn't say Allah struck an example. What did he say? An example has been struck. He took the speaker out of the picture. You know why? Because when the disbeliever would hear that the speaker is Allah, all of a sudden, the rest of the text would become irrelevant. They would tune out. So Allah Azza wa Jal in that ayah, instead of emphasizing the speaker, He emphasizes something else. And that's the next component of communication. What is being said? The speech itself. Simple words, the content. Two components so far of speech. The speaker and the content. Two things, the speaker and the content. So when Allah says an example is being struck, what's He emphasizing? The content. Listen to the example, forget where it's coming from. Don't judge the speaker, judge what? The speech. Judge the words themselves. Here's the third component. How do they say it? It's who says, what they say, and the third part, how do they say it? If I give you advice, study harder. Right? Your exams are coming upon you, and your mom comes to you, your best friend comes to you and says, you're such a loser. You're wasting all your time, you're pathetic, you know. And they mean to tell you study. Now they gave you good advice, but the way in which they gave it made it ineffective. It made it ineffective. So it's not just that you have the speaker and the content, but the way in which you present the content has to be effective. Otherwise the effect is lost. The communication is lost.